All right, we are a little, if you're just joining us for Life Coach Friday, we are a few minutes late due to technical difficulties.
Nothing that Natalie can't figure out because that's who I depend on for this.
Exactly. So we figured it out. We are pretty sure that we are actually live now. So welcome to Life Coach Friday. I'm Natalie Webster with
And I'm
Excelsior
Annette
Realty.
Walters. And I'm Annette
Yes.
Walters with Connected Life Coaching. We're going to get this down.
Yeah, we are. Thank goodness, it's so funny because I'll have friends who'd be like, oh, thank goodness it's Friday. But for me, Fridays are more like what a typical Monday is because my weekends are busy in real
hmm
estate. And even though actually I work on Mondays too, but for some reason I like Mondays better. But I love that we do this on Fridays because I feel like it helps get us in that good mindset for the weekend, whether it's going to be a weekend of relaxing, whatever people are going to do wherever they are. And today we're going to be talking about how to ruin a relationship in 2 sentences or less. And as part
Have
of
you done
that,
it?
I have, well, not completely ruined, but kind of messed with. I've gotten better, thankfully, since I've been working with you. I've learned a lot about communication. So, as part of that, though, we're going to be talking about the solutions to that and what we're talking about. Do you want to share a little bit about what we mean by, how to ruin a relationship in 2 sentences or less?
So, what we're talking about today is really um, when we ruin a relationship. Um, a lot of times it happens not necessarily by what we say, but how we interpret what's being said to us. And so, as Natalie and I were talking over the last couple of weeks, we had come across a number of examples that where we had received text messages or emails that the first immediate reaction is, what the heck? Who are these people type of a thing to say that sort of thing. And so today we're going to talk about the communication that we have, especially in the written word, and how it can be misinterpreted, and how we as the readers of the words can make a difference and hopefully not ruin or take a couple hits at those relationships that we would like to see keep going. So can you remember a couple of those that we had talked about, Natalie?
Yeah. So, for example, here's a good example. Maybe you get a text message and it says, maybe you gave an idea or a thought about something, and the person texts back, is that logical? Now, is that what they meant? So I read it and I go, it says, is that logical? And I'm like, is that logical? What do you mean, is that
Uh-huh.
logical? Are you saying I'm not logical? Then you're firing back a text on there. And let me also say, I am as guilty of this as anyone, maybe worse. A lot of when my kids were growing up, I would fight with them on text message when they were teenagers.
Oh my
Totally
gosh,
on the not what
yes.
not to do, what not to do. But I did it. So I just want to be clear that everything we talk about is without judgment because I've probably done it worse than everybody. So I think that's a good example. So I can read this and go, oh, is that logical? But what else could it mean?
Yeah. A lot of times we can take it like, are you stupid or something?
Yeah.
And the words say, is this logical, or
Hmm.
is that logical? But we make up all of these things. The other one that is tough to read for me, well, let's talk that over tonight. I'm like, I sent it in text. I thought maybe this was a simple thing. What do you mean we have to talk it over tonight?
So do you read that as then like let's talk about it tonight? Let's talk about that tonight. Like it's a serious thing versus it could be the tone could be because again, it's a written word so we don't see it. And the tone and the intention
Mhm.
could be, you know what, let's talk about that tonight because some things you should just be talking about in person. Not on text,
That's
not on
true.
email. What about
There's
one
so much we
like
should think about there.
yeah, and if you have examples, we want to hear them. In the comments, go ahead and post your example of phrases on text message or emails that are commonly or easily misunderstood that you or someone else took the wrong way, because that's what we're talking about today. Another one, here's one of mine that I sometimes I want to make sure. This is why I love emojis. And this one is, did you read my text? So the words say in the text, did you read my text? Now I could read
Mhm.
that and hear, did you read my text? You dumb dumb. Did you see what I
Okay.
sent earlier? But also, in that, how else might that be interpreted that's completely different?
Well,
Like if it
it
were
can
neutral.
yeah, because that's the thing that we talk about a lot here on Life Coach Friday is, how we perceive things. And
Hmm.
misinterpretation happens quite a bit. And so I want to back up just a little bit and define and actually talk about why it happens. Because misinterpretation, especially in text, now this happens in person as well, but this really isolates it for this conversation. It happens because there's something that gets like a little light bulb goes off in our brain, and our brain perceives that, what did you what did you just say? The last one you just said.
Oh my gosh. I
What did you
totally
make
don't remember.
what do you mean by this? What do you mean by this? Or,
It was something like that. Like, what do
talk
you
about
mean
it
by
later.
this? Or can we talk about that later? Or did you, oh, it was, did you read my text? Did you
Oh,
read my
did you
earlier
read my
text?
text?
Yeah, which I could
And
just be
so
asking, oh, did you read my text? But it
mhm.
can be read as, did you read my text?
Exactly. And when that happens in our brains, what happens is that this little light bulb goes off and our brain registers this as a threat, as something that is coming against us that we need to protect ourselves against. And so um, when that happens, our fight or flight really does kick in, and we have trouble, moving over to what else it can mean. Now, the reason why I'm starting here is because we all do this. We all have these knee jerk reactions. And if you've had one that's pretty intense lately, just remember that this is the normal way that all humans do this. There isn't a human on this planet that doesn't do this, because we have two sides of our brain. And luckily we do, because one helps us in fight or flight, which keeps us safe. I mean, our brain is completely programmed on the automatic side to keep us safe physically. Now, most of our challenges here in the modern world aren't, tigers coming around the corner that are going to eat us, but it still registers these emotions that'll pop up as tigers and things that we need to protect ourselves from right now. And that's why we go into these negative emotions almost immediately. And so, where I see this come up differently for you, Natalie, is that I hear you talking about the other side, which is, you know, the benefit of the doubt. I'm just going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And
Yeah.
this is actually almost catching that fight or flight and deciding to make a different direction or go in a different direction. Why do you do that?
Well, I know that for me, my approach, majority of the time with people is I try to approach things with the assumption that they mean well, with the assumption that this is not a negative thing, with the assumption that they're not trying to, pick a fight or cause drama. And I try to understand it. We talk a lot about approaching things from a place of curiosity. So I'll ask questions to clarify so that I can actually understand it. And when I approach it that way and I'm open to it, what I find is, even if the person, if my viewpoint is, look, I'm assuming the best with you here. It's like in real estate, when I go into a transaction with an agent on the other side, I'm of the assumption that, they're professional, we're going to work together and we're going to get this deal done and we're going to get to the closing table successfully. If there's a time when I'm incorrect about that, be it in work or my personal life, what I find that when I approach it with that viewpoint of being, not having these glasses on that this is going to go badly or they mean me harm, even when I'm wrong and even if they are being jerky or whatever, it has a minimal effect on me, if even at all, because I recognize that it's got nothing to do with me. Or I'll inquire and go, hey, can you clarify? Like, I'll get on the phone, hey, I read this. I just want to see, are we cool? Are we
Right.
okay? Is there something going on? And I would say 9.5 out of 10 times, the other person says, "Oh, yeah, no, we're totally fine. And then I'm sorry if I came across short. I've
Mhm.
got this going on over here." But see, if I didn't clarify, or if I heard that same communication with the assumption that they were out to get me, harm me, or something like that, then I go down this emotional rabbit hole of conflict. So I've found I like doing it, just with that more of an open mind and a curious mind without an assumption that there's some kind of nefarious happenings going on there.
So do you seem to give the benefit of the doubt because I've known you quite a while. Quite often. Do you
Mhm.
have these knee-jerk reactions still?
Yes, but in a way that it's more I need to clarify and understand. For me
Okay.
personally, I'm very literal. So when I read something or hear something, and I think that's part of it because I don't assume the tone because I'm not sure what it is. And if I'm speaking face to face with somebody and they've got and they're using words like, "Yeah, no, I'm totally fine," but maybe their body language is more towards anger, I get hung up on the words. And so I'm like, "Oh, I guess you're totally fine." Not always true, but
Exactly.
yeah, but
Mhm.
not to the degree that I used to, because it does hit me. But that is my cue when I go, okay, wait, what is this? This is an interesting feeling and reaction. Like I suddenly want to throttle this person. So I go, okay, take
Exactly,
a
that's
step
it.
back. Yes,
Mhm.
thanks to working with you, I've probably avoided quite a bit of jail time.
So, that is part of this work. That's part of the reason why I have a life coach myself is that what we're trying to do is that we're trying to catch those emotional cues, if you will, those knee-jerk reactions, those negative emotions that feel so urgent, fight or flighty, if you will, in our bodies, and really put them in check. Is this what I need right now, or is this unproductive?
Yeah.
And so, it's when you asked that question early on today, and it's when you get to that point where you take that as a cue, not as a rabbit trail to run down, but just an option, maybe a fork in the road, where you go, okay, this is a stopping point. Which direction do I actually want to go? That's the place where you actually see. A lot of times here also, we talk about this platter, and on this platter, we have a ton of index cards, and each one that you pick up is equally true for you.
Hmm.
And it determines what your experience is. And in this case, which fork in the road are you going to take? Are you going to go down the rabbit trail where, you just are anxious or frustrated or mad, until it kind of fizzles out? Or do we see other pieces of this? We choose another one and walk down the path differently.
So we can use that knee jerk reaction when you read something like, maybe it's a text. Are you going to be here soon? Maybe you're meeting up with someone. But you could
Mhm.
read that as, are you going to be here soon? Or it's
Mhm.
just, hey, are you going to be here soon? So when we feel that initial knee jerk reaction, kind of to your point, that is when we know take a step back. And
Mhm.
and what would it be, kind of like a, so I try to ask myself, well, what else could this mean? Or
Mhm.
I mean, honestly, I just try to clarify it with the person because I am the world's worst mind reader.
We all are. We think we are, but we are all terrible at
Yeah,
mind reading.
if you don't tell me what's going on, I don't know. And I wonder, Annette, if that is somehow works in my favor of being able to
Mhm.
take more of a step back, because I know that my assumptions are often wrong.
Mhm.
Between being literal and whatnot, that I've gotten into the habit of clarifying and just asking questions so that I can have a good understanding.
Mhm.
When I've been on the other side of that, when I've been the one being misunderstood, I notice in those situations, it's that person is seeing what I'm seeing through their own, seeing what I'm saying through their own lens of
Mhm.
some type of negativity or some type of fear. And even if it's anger, there's some fear in there. So
Right.
taking a step back, we can identify it and then clarify and ask questions then, right? to if we're not sure what the tone is, to clear it up.
Exactly. And what I'm hearing, and this is part of what we do in life coaching, is that we change the rules that we work on. And one of your rules that I'm hearing you say is that I am literal. You identify yourself as being literal. Now, in some ways, that is a function of the way your brain processes. But in a lot of other ways, it's the way that you choose to receive information.
Yeah.
And so it's an automatic rule that kicks in, and like,
Mm-hmm.
I've decided that I may not pick up on all of the cues.
Mm-hmm.
So I am literal means that then I execute on asking questions, getting curious, especially when something feels off. I'm not going to trust necessarily that. I'm going to go in for clarification. So, you bring up a good one. When are you going to be here? You can
Mm-hmm.
almost hear the tone in my voice. If you're working with somebody who is constantly complaining that you're late, or that you're incompetent for doing this or that, when they text you, when are you going to be here, you're making it mean, oh my gosh, they're complaining about me, they don't think that I'm capable. What we can just go down the rabbit hole. And yes, they've said all of these other words that have demonstrated that before. But in this case, do we need to carry that negative emotion again? Or do we want to choose a different experience? Because even if they are disappointed that we're maybe tardy, do we have to take on negative emotion to prove that we like them or that sort of thing? What do
No,
you think?
no, I don't think that
Why
we
not?
do. Well, I don't see how that would solve the problem. How that would make it any better, or especially if it's not true. If that wasn't my intent in what I was saying, then I'd
Mhm.
I'd want to clarify that.
But as the reader, so you're receiving it.
Yeah.
When are you
Oh,
going to be
sure.
here?
Yeah.
So let's go from the receiver side, because um, what as humans, what we can do is that we can determine how we read or experience something. We can't actually create experiences for other people unless they agree to it. They decide that that's what they want as well.
Oh, that's
So as
true.
the reader of when are you going to be here? And let's say that somebody has complained that maybe, you're late, or, you're making this mean that this thing that we're going to isn't a priority for you, or, they
Yeah.
make it
Yeah.
mean all sorts of things.
Yeah.
But how do we have to see it? We can choose it.
Yeah, we can choose it. So, as the reader of the communication, so if I'm the one
Mhm.
receiving the text message or the email, and if you're jumping in with us, we're specifically talking about written communication and how easy it is to ruin a relationship in 2 sentences or less. But as the reader of that communication, I feel like I have a responsibility as well to make sure I'm not looking at it through some kind of a lens of negativity because of where I'm at in that moment. When if I'm having a difficult time or a bad day, something's going on, and I get hit with something, I'm more inclined, I think that's the human nature part, to see it through the lens of what I'm feeling, even if it's completely unrelated to what they're saying. And that's where I
Mhm.
think communication gets mixed up. So as the reader, I feel like I have a responsibility to even more so take that step back. Because why would I just make the assumption that, are you going to be here soon, or are you on your way? Let's talk about this in person. Whatever the text or the email is, I feel I have a responsibility in how I am choosing to interpret it.
Mhm. Because what's the benefit of stepping back and choosing?
Well, it puts time between me and whatever my reaction is going to be, because often that initial reaction of upset because of how I'm choosing to see it, if I act on that, well, then I'm ruining a relationship in 2 sentences or less from that
Mhm.
point. But if I can take that step back and go, all right, let's let us take a moment here. What's going on? What's going on with me? This happened the other day. You and I were on the phone and I was starving to death. And, I had thrown something which didn't need to be thrown. It had nothing to do with nothing except the fact that I was starving. And I get very hangry when I am hungry. And so anything that comes in, I was seeing through this lens of, this is just one more thing. And the truth is, all I needed to do was eat.
Mhm.
And I did. And I ate. And I think while I was talking to you, I was eating. And as I ate, I just started to calm down. And then I revisited, then I picked my phone up again and, okay, let's get back to the text message or communication I was dealing with.
Mhm. Yeah, because that knee-jerk reaction, that fight or flight side of our brain that kicks in feels so real and so like something that we have to address right now. And yet, as I said before, in this modern world, we don't have a tiger coming around the corner. We
Yeah.
actually have time most of the time to make a big decision or to make a full-bodied decision.
Hmm.
And by doing that, it's even like, we talked about, because you were on your way home, because we were talking on in the car. And, I was like, I'm so proud of you. You didn't stop by McDonald's. And you were like, "Oh, I could have. I so could have." And yet, because there was that space, because you were not acting directly on it, you decided that, this would be a much better thing to eat so that I feel better in the future. And that's what this really boils down to is creating your experience not only has to do with what's going on right now in front of you, but it gives you the space to think, okay, how do I want to respond to this person? How important is this person? Perhaps what is going on with this person so that I can see not only what's going on right here, but the impact that it will have in a day, in a week, in a year. How long do I want this relationship to go on? And what do I want it to be? And all of that, when we create space, then impacts the kind of communication that we give back. Ultimately, and this is what I talk to my kids about, is that when you when you take time to understand and get curious, like you said, it doesn't excuse actions. It doesn't, condone behaviors or things like that, but it does give you a place of peace so that you can decide, okay, now how do I want to respond? And that's what we need in so much of the communication that we have. And we're so likely to just shoot off that email or shoot off the text message, and we don't want it to be misunderstood. But knowing this, now you know that if it is misunderstood, it's so much easier to give grace,
Yeah.
because you know when we know that these knee-jerk reactions come up, and everybody has the two sides of their brain, the fight or flight and then the decision making. What we're doing is that when they're in fight or flight, we need to wait it out until we can get back to when they're also in the decision-making side of their brain.
Yeah. I keep flashing back so many times to when I was, parenting when my kids were younger, and the things, my daughter would say something, and the way when I wouldn't take a step back and I wouldn't create that space, and I would go at it from, again, through this lens of this negativity or the 10 times before when she said that, which is then I'm not being present and dealing with it. It is just crazy how fast that can spiral and get out of control. And then the next thing you're saying things that you didn't really mean. I mean, in so many relationships, this is such a powerful tool. Before we wrap up, well, actually, we started late, so we actually aren't as behind as I thought. One thing, so Molly brings up a good point when it comes to punctuation and whatnot. And I think with emails and with text these days, punctuation is very important because it can completely change the meaning of a message. But also, one thing that I try to utilize are emojis. When I really want to communicate, be clear that I'm being lighthearted about something. There's the winky face emoji, except I don't know. My daughter told me that you can't use the winky face or that it means something else. We're going to have to Google that. If someone knows, post it in the comments. Does the winky face emoji? Oh my God. I was told never to wink, and I just saw myself and I see why. I should not be winking at anyone.
Now let us know if that's the wrong thing to do, because
That is,
we obviously don't
yeah.
know. And Molly, you are a woman after my own heart because this was one of the things that came up while Natalie and I were preparing for this today. Has anybody ever seen this book? And I'm going to hopefully
Hmm.
Eats, Shoots, and Leaves, the tolerance approach to punctuation. This thing is fascinating. So if you look at this, what does eat, shoots, and leaves mean? Does it mean that we have a panda with a firearm that's, around bamboo, or that he's eating and then shooting and then leaving, or he's eating actually shoots and leaves? It all depends on where you put the punctuation, and it makes so much difference in your text messages and your email. And I know most people are not passionate about this the way that Molly and I are. Molly, there's another book, Confessions of a Teenage Comma Queen. It was written by the New Yorker editor. And so you might want to pick that one up because that one is also fascinating. But, it all makes a difference as to what it is. And so when you receive email, text, just the written word without any tone, any body language, anything like that, realize and put into your process method, much like what Natalie does when she receives communication, is that I might be misconstruing this. I wonder what this actually is. And so, get curious, especially if you have one of those knee-jerk reactions where it brings up negative emotions. And the first idea is to go into fight or flight.
Hmm.
I need to run away. I need to cancel this relationship, or you know what, I'm going to let them know how they hurt me and I'm going to beat them down. Both. What are we doing here?
Hmm.
Is that really what you want? Because do you really want to decimate, what's going on? Because even when we want to correct people, that's not the way that we can do it and be effective. We need open communications, and that takes our thinking side of the brain, our decision making side.
Do you think
Mhm.
also one thing that I like to do as well, because I know how my brain works and how I think, and I find this helps me a lot in my, especially in my professional life. When I'm working with clients, I'll be let them know, look, there's nothing you need to sugarcoat with me. If you don't like
Mhm.
something, you don't like it. If you like it, you like it. I just
Mhm.
need to know.
Mhm.
And that letting them know, like, you can be very straight with me. Some people aren't as comfortable being very forward in their communication. And so that's something too that I've, come to learn as well, because I have diarrhea of the mouth and we'll just talk about pretty much anything. It does not mean that everyone else is equally as comfortable talking
Mhm.
about those things. And it's one thing when you have the person in front of you, and we're talking about if it's in text or if it's written. I really see the value in that clarification, because
Mhm.
I'm the queen. I think I told you once I walked in on my brother-in-law when we were on a houseboat and he was in his underwear up top because he was sleeping out there. And I went up there with my coffee and my book and and I'm like, "Oh, hey." And he's like, "Hey." And I'm like, no big deal, like we've known each other 25 years. We're family. He's in his underwear. And then later on, I meet up with him and my sister on the houseboat and they're kind of laughing and my sister's like, "Yeah, I heard you walked in on, my husband today in his underwear." And I said, "Oh, yeah, but I was totally fine with it. Like it wasn't a big deal. I just went about and read my book." And she
Mhm.
stops and she leans in and she goes, "Did it ever occur to you that maybe he was uncomfortable?" And of course I had to
Mhm.
say, "No." Cuz he didn't
Not at
say he
all.
was. But in playing the tape in my head, I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh," when he grabbed something and kind of, I was like, "Oh,
What that meant.
that maybe I was just like, I'm cool with it. It's cool. He's not saying anything. I'm just going to read my book and drink my coffee because it's a nice day." So
Mhm.
that clarifying, and for me, I know that's something I need to be conscious of, that
Mhm.
I need to pay more attention to when someone's in front of me. And then you throw in text messages and emails. And even more so, I want to clarify and make sure. And so I will upfront, whether it's a friend or, I mean, and when I'm working with a client, we spend a lot of time together, and I say, look, just, tell me if I need to slow my roll, or,
Mhm.
if you're uncomfortable with anything, because I'm not likely to notice.
Mhm. And that, just that space that we provide people, that's one of the things that most that I want to implement in my life that you do is that you start these relationships with people, your clients, and even before then with these rules that, and it basically gives them an out. So one of my favorites is you tell them that um, now, if you need to cancel on me for any reason for this lunch today, you don't even have to tell me why. You can just, it's fine because I understand, we'll do something another time or whatever. And, being so literal, so upfront with these things is such, it just shows such compassion for other people. And compassion is one of those things that doesn't necessarily come with understanding, other than I'm understanding that you're a human too, and I want to extend this to you. I'm going to assume that I don't know, and not knowing is not going to send me into fight or flight. It's not a tiger
Yeah.
around the corner. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, and I'm not going to take it personally if you want to cancel or reschedule lunch or whatever it is. I just know from my own personal experience as an individual who, like everybody, we got a lot going on. And, with my neurological Lyme, sometimes I'll have a flare up, and there's not a lot of warning sometimes, and it can change the course of my day or what I'm able to do. So I really
Mhm.
appreciate that gift of being able to go, hey, I'm going to want to reschedule lunch because I got a really full day, and I can tell my
Mhm.
energy is really low, and I want to be able to get through my day. And so people who are the closest to me know that. But in large part because I upfront share that. There are going to be times when, I'm going to need to make this change. And for the most part, in fact, I would say, most everybody's been really open to that. And then I try to, like you said, make it same for you. If you need to change or cancel, don't ever stress about it, because there is
Mhm.
so I've experienced that on both ends of that equation. And there is nothing worse than when you need to change or alter plans and you don't have what you think is this good excuse to do so.
Right.
But that's part of advocating for ourselves and knowing, how full our day is and knowing what we need. And when we can do that for each other and have that grace, even if
Mhm.
it's something that was a simple mistake, we make mistakes. Mistakes happen. It's all how
Mhm.
you deal with it then. How do you deal with it from the mistake? Sometimes mistakes are the greatest.
Well, and how do you deal with it? That comes from how do you choose to see it. We're back to, choosing what our experiences is of anything that comes. Now, one of the things that I need to add to this is that, life really is 50-50, and you're going to have things come at you and people that come at you that are not what you want, that are maybe ugly, as well as the positive things. But even in that, we have a choice, and we have a choice to do it in such a way that best serves us so that we can show up as our best self. And that really is the goal, especially in those things that are very difficult to deal with. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, when you're facing something that you don't want to face, you want to make the best decisions. You want to, take care of yourself or care for others coming from your best self. And that that comes from that place of, being present and choosing how we want to show up. One of the things that I'd like to encourage everybody to do is start to look for words, and Molly and I are going to love this because we like words. Is that start to make lists of emotion words have to that work for you. There are hundreds of them, of course. But when we have this vocabulary, we are so much more likely to express what we need to help other people understand who we are and what we're trying to communicate, as well as get curious and ask others, how they're doing so that they can properly communicate and we can understand on that side. And having a larger emotional vocabulary beyond, I feel good or I feel bad or I'm mad or I'm angry, it helps us to be present and really understand who we are to create that experience that we want to have, especially when we're in crisis.
Do you mean words that describe our own emotions so that when we're communicating it to be able to say, I'm feeling sad, or I've got some anxiety around that. You mean those words to identify those emotions in ourselves?
Correct. So maybe I'm despondent. Maybe I am the one that I used this week. When I get highly emotioned, I get oh, what is it called? Like not sparky, but like it's like there's a vibration, there's electrical vibration that goes through my body. Now
Mm-hmm.
I'm not coming up with that word because that one is very good. But it's like, there's like electricity that goes through my body and I can feel it. And that is a place where I'm not necessarily present. But when I identify it, I go, oh, I'm feeling this way. Am I in a place where I am in fight or flight? Because that's literally what that is when my body starts vibrating.
Mm-hmm.
And, I can calm it down. But it's not until we can identify the state that we're in that we can calm it very quickly.
Mm.
Sometimes if we really sit into our feelings, they'll literally dissipate within about 90 seconds or 90 seconds. But if we wind up and we've got anxiety and we're judging, oh, I shouldn't be feeling bad about this, I shouldn't be feeling angry, it just kind of winds up and it can go for hours or days. Yes, adrenaline is what hits it. But I was looking for the emotion word. But yeah, it's definitely adrenaline that is creating this. But ultimately, it's coming from something that I have been thinking about, and it typically happens when I'm super excited about something.
I
But
would.
it
Li-
just the body vibrates.
I want to add to our list for future topics. And again,
Mhm.
anyone watching here, reach out to us. You can post it in the comments, a future topic you want to talk about. You can also go to
.net.
connectedlifecoaching.net
Yes,
and
and we do.
directly reach out to Annette as well. If it's something, that you don't want to publicly post, you can send me a message through Natalie Webster Realtor here on Facebook. One of the things I would like to get into in maybe a future topic is kind of just that in, the idea of when kind of what you just said, where we identify those emotions, but also not making that other person responsible for those emotions. We won't
Mhm.
get too much into it now, but things like, you were making me very angry.
And honey, we learned that from when we were little kids. Did little Sally make you sad? So, we're
Yeah.
gonna talk about that in the future. That is a really good topic to bring up.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. I think that that'll be a really good one. So again, send us your messages, keep emailing, reach out to Annette. You can schedule a complimentary life coach session with her to find out what it's all about. We've got some really fun topics coming up. We do Life Coach Friday every other Friday and stream it onto multiple community pages. So definitely stay tuned. So not next Friday, but the following Friday. Is there anything you want to add before we wrap up? Or I should say, as we wrap up?
As we wrap up here, yes, if this has resonated with you, if you're in that place where you're in personal growth and you want to just hit the accelerator on it, I encourage you to come and schedule a one-on-one with me. Let's talk about where you are, where you want to go, and let me help you see the bridge that goes from here to there. Whether one-on-one life coaching is for you or not, you're going to gain an awareness that you will not have before the call begins. And so I encourage you to sign up and choose that time and day that works for you. And I look forward to meeting you.
All right, everybody. So we will chat at you later. We'll see you for Life Coach Friday, 2 Fridays from
2 weeks.
today. Yeah. Bye bye.